Hey everybody, and welcome to Real Supernatural Encounters. For my guest today, I have David. David, if you could, would you give a brief bio about yourself?
Oh, sure. Not much really to tell. My name is David. I've had a few encounters with, I guess, what everyone would call dogmen throughout my life, and I'm here to tell you guys about them.
All right. Well, if you're ready, David, go ahead and start with your first encounter.
Sure. Well, I feel like I've told this story so many times around campfires my whole life, and so the first thing that I can remember. The actual encounter was when I was probably about, I would say 7 or 8. The time kind of fades a little bit there, but I was at my grandmother's house, and it was summertime, so it was kind of late at night, but it wasn't really dark out yet, kind of dusky. I was playing ball with my cousin, and we were just tossing it back and forth in the yard, and the ball went down the side of the house into the backyard. And so I chased after it. And at the very back of the yard, there's like a chain link fence that separates the yard from an old overgrown alley. One time or another, I think it was used as a road, but it was just weeds and bushes and trees and everything like that. So when I get back there, I notice that there's like sort of like a rustling sound. So of course I'm immediately thinking it's just an animal in the alley, or we had a lot of possums and raccoons and things like that in that area. But as I get closer, I notice that it's much larger. It was kind of laying against the fence on the outside. And it was using the chain link almost as a mode of transportation. It was sort of dragging itself, like grabbing onto the chain link and pulling itself, almost as if it were injured or something. And so the closer that I got, I noticed that it was roughly the size of a human, an adult. It was covered in like a brownish, dark fur. I could only see the upper half of its body because the rest of it was obscured by weeds and that sort of thing. But I could see that its hands were human-like, but its head was canine. So it looked like a dogman, basically. And of course, being a kid, I stood and stared at it for a few minutes, and what seemed like a few minutes, it was probably more just a couple of seconds. And then I ran back up to the front to get my cousin because I wanted him to come take a look at it, of course, to corroborate what I thought I had just seen. Of course, by the time we got back there, nothing was there. It was the alley was seemingly empty. The ground, the weeds at the back of the fence were kind of smashed down a little bit, so it seemed like something had been there, but at that point, it didn't seem like anything was there anymore. So I don't know if it left. And of course, again, being just a kid, I told myself, and of course he told me, you're making it up, or you imagined something. It wasn't really there. So I never really thought about it much more after that. And that was that. I think he and I talked about it a couple of times, but more like, just trying to scare each other, that sort of thing. The next time I remember anything, and I say remember anything because it's important, because at the end of the story, there's something that kind of clicked with me, and I do have some voids in my memory of certain things. So the next thing that I can specifically remember was being in high school, probably like a sophomore or junior in high school. So, maybe 16 or 17. And I came home from school, and I think that there was like a game after. So I was, getting ready to, of course I was a teenager, so everything was like, nap. I had to take a nap before I did anything. So I got in bed and took a nap, and then I woke up and something woke me up. I can't, I don't know specifically what it was, if it was a noise or just a feeling or something, but when I woke up, it was almost completely dark in my room, except for the bedroom door was open slightly, so there was some light coming in from the hallway, and there were probably 4 or 5 minimum of these creatures in my room. They weren't making any noise. They weren't doing anything aggressive. They were just observing. They were just watching me. And I laid there and I thought, I must be dreaming. I have to be dreaming. But it didn't feel like a dream. It felt very real. It felt like these things were in the room with me. And so I laid there for a moment and just sort of looked at them, and they were varying heights, details that I normally don't get into because nobody really ever asked, but there were, they were all taller than a regular man, but there was a pretty tall one at the end of the bed, and then a couple of shorter ones nearer to the side of the bed. And they didn't move to do anything. They didn't communicate in any way. They just stood there. And so, of course, not knowing what to do, I just sort of laid there and closed my eyes. And I don't know if I went back to sleep, but when I opened my eyes again, they were gone, because I remember hearing my parents out in the living room. And again, I just convinced myself, or I told myself that it had to be a dream. That couldn't have been. There's nothing that could have been other than just a dream. So and then I went about my night, and again didn't really think of it at all. And then the next and then most recent, which at this point isn't all that recent, but the next and most recent is I was in my early 20s, maybe mid 20s, probably mid 20s. I used to work at Borders Bookstore. Shout out to a place that doesn't exist anymore. And some of my friends and I I worked together. We'd get together and we would go to. There was a Bennigan's, like a little restaurant, chain restaurant in the parking lot, right in the plaza there. And so we'd go there sometimes and have dinner after work on the weekends occasionally, have a couple of drinks, things like that. I didn't happen to be working that night, so my boyfriend at the time, my husband now, he and I drove up there to meet some friends, and we sat there for maybe an hour and a half, had a couple of drinks, had some snacks and all that kind of stuff. And I did have to work the next day, so we headed home. And where I lived at the time was not too very far away from where I lived with my parents at the time that the second encounter happened. So the road to my house was, I don't want to call it a country road, but it's kind of dark, long, tree lined for a lot of it until you get up to where the houses are. So we were still kind of trees on the side of the road, so it was pretty dark out. We're just chatting away, talking about what had happened earlier that evening, what we were going to do on the weekend coming up, and all that kind of stuff. And I happened to notice something in the road ahead of us, at this point, just outside of where my headlights were hitting. And so I slowed down a little bit because I thought it was an animal. I thought maybe it was a deer or something like that. And then as I got closer, I noticed that it was lower to the ground. And so I slowed down, and at this point, I'm slowing to the point where I'm almost at a stop, and he's noticing that I'm slowing down, and so then he focuses ahead, and so we both just stopped talking. So what it was it looked like a dog. It looked like a wolf. It was grayish, covered in fur. The dog snout, ears. I can't recall if it had a tail. I didn't really pay that attention to that detail, or it's just been lost over time. But as we kind of crept, inch by inch, foot by foot closer in the car, I suppose it noticed that we were there, and it stood up on hind legs, and I could see that it was shaped like a man, with the dog, the snout and the ears and the humanoid arms. And legs, but the legs did at the ankle bend like a dog, so not like straight down, like kind of where you guys know what I'm talking about, how a dog's legs look. It's hard to explain. But as we, kind of sat there for a moment, it as it stood there, it sort of looked over at us, and the best way to describe it is that it just wasn't there anymore. It didn't feel like it wasn't physical. It looked like it was a physical being, but then it just sort of like drifted away. If that could be how I explain it. So before I said anything, or before he said anything, I stopped him and I said, I'm not going to say anything. I want you to explain to me exactly what you just saw. Before I put anything in your head or anything like that, because I'm not even sure at this point I had talked to him about any of the other stuff, because it all sort of like started rushing back. And he explained to me exactly what I had seen, that it looked like a dog in the road, but that it stood up. It was way bigger than a dog, looked more like a man. I think he may have referred to it as a little more like a werewolf or something like that. And then it just wasn't there anymore. So we went home and talked, pretty extensively about it. Of course, not trying to convince each other, but telling each other it must have been something. There had to have been an explanation for it that is better than just what we thought we saw. So after that experience, we talked about it a little bit more here and there. And then I thought of something that brought me back to childhood before the first experience. And I've told this story before, and a lot of people are like, oh, that doesn't have anything to do with it. You're grasping at straws, or you're linking two things together that don't correspond with each other. But I believe that they do. When I was a little kid, more like a toddler, my aunt and my uncle had an old phone booth in their house, like the kind that you'd find at the back of a bar. So not like an outdoor phone booth. It was all wooden, had a lighted sign at the top. When you closed the door, the fan came on, the light came on. So it was just like, at the back of a bar type thing. Later, I found out that it actually came from an old train station in Chicago, from an old metro station. He bought it at an auction. But it sat in their downstairs area where they had all their lounge furniture and everything. And I used to play in it all the time. There was no phone in it, but the fan would come on, the light would come on, and my mom said that I always just wanted to go in there. And so I remembered that, and I remembered, but I wanted somebody else to say it to me. I thought I remembered what I would say when I was playing in it. So I called her and I asked her, and I said, remember that phone booth that I used to play in when I was a kid? And she said, yeah, I used to, go and sit in there for hours and just, jabber to yourself. And, it was like a built-in babysitter. We didn't have to worry about you because we knew you were just playing in that phone booth. And I said, what did I used to say when I would come out? And she said, not much, baby talk, kid stuff, just make believe. And she said, let me think about it. I'm going to call your aunt and I'll talk to her for a few minutes and we'll, see if I can remember what it was. So when she called me back, she said, I remember, you would go in there and you would sit and just talk to yourself and just, mumble and play and everything. And then when you would come out, you would tell us that you went to wherever you went to visit the puppy people. And I was like, did I have any further explanation than that? And she said, no, you said there was, you went to a place where there were puppy people. And so that sort of all tied it together for me. But then it just raised more questions like, what is that? How could that be even possible? But I've since spoken to my aunt and she says there's nothing special about it, just an old phone booth. It sits in their garage now. Nothing weird happened, in its history as far as she can tell. It was just from an old train station, and my uncle wanted it for one of his collections of odd things, and they bought it. So that's that. I've looked into a lot of this stuff, and that's how I actually came to be introduced to you and see all this stuff. And a lot of the stuff that I see doesn't really fit with my experience. These things were never aggressive. I never felt threatened. And I have read other stories where people just observed them or saw them just observing them, but I just it was almost as if they were just watching me for some reason. Like they were just, I don't know, keeping an eye on, or if there was something interesting about me, or I'm not sure, but that was that. That was those were my experiences, and I don't remember any others. But as I said, like sometimes I have little voids in my memory, or when I think of things, like I don't remember going back to sleep when I was in my bed in high school, but then there's nothing. I don't remember anything until I open my eyes again. So that could just be maybe I fell asleep, or that could be something where there's a piece missing there. When I was a kid, I remember playing in the phone booth, but I don't have a clear memory of being inside of it. I don't remember anything after closing the door or before I came back out again. So again, there's a void in my memory. Could it be because it was 40 years ago? Probably. Could it be that there's just something in my mind is shutting that off? Maybe. I'm not sure. But I don't recall anything outside of that, other than those three specific incidences. Nothing springs to mind. But I have done other research and reached out to other people that are experts, or that have written stories and things like that. And some people have said, oh yeah, for sure. I've heard of a ton of people that don't have any, that they're not aggressive. I think that we tend to be drawn to the more like, I was driving down the road and one of them, tried to get me. That's the kind of stories I think people are more drawn to sometimes. So the stories where it's like I woke up and then one of them was staring at me, maybe might not be as interesting as some of the other ones, but that is those are my experiences, and I tell them around campfires a lot, and I get mixed reactions. Some people are horrified, some people call me a liar.
Well, David, I definitely believe you. And with that, I have tons of questions for you.
All right, great. I'll answer them to the best of my ability.
So do you think that, because you said that you feel like you have somewhat of a memory block on a lot of it, would you ever consider doing hypnotherapy to kind of go into your subconscious and get that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if there was something in there that I'm not able to access, yeah, I would love to do that.
I'm so intrigued of what you would find out, or
Right.
learn.
Kind of maybe scared of what I might find out.
You know what? I probably would be too, because if it was blocked out of your consciousness, and there was
right, there's got to be a reason for it, right?
Yeah. So going back towards your first encounter, how big did you think that Dogman was? Even though he was laying, was he laying on his back against the fence, or
it was more like on his side, like yeah, just on his side with his arms kind of outstretched in front of him, like, with his hands kind of linked through the chain link fence. So I would say, thinking about it now, if I had to guess, I'd say probably an average, the size of an average human. So, maybe just under 6 feet tall, somewhere around there. Again, I couldn't see the lower half of the body because it was obscured by the weeds and the brush and everything. But just the bulk of the upper part that I saw would lead me to believe, in my 7-year-old mind, that was an adult-sized creature.
Now, what year was that when that first encounter?
7. If I was 7 or 8, it would have been 1985 or 86.
All right. Let's see here. When you seen that creature, did it look at you?
It seemed more involved in moving itself, like maybe to safety, or more into the deeper brush. It wasn't like the other ones that were that couldn't sort of looked at me, or it seemed like I happened upon it when it was in a almost a vulnerable state. So it didn't really, I could just see the shape of the head, that's why originally I thought it was a dog of some sort, but yeah, it didn't really look at me, or make eye contact or anything like that.
Was you able to see? I'm assuming you probably only seen the back of the head. Would you be able to tell what kind of Dogman it is out of the variances? Like what it looked more like?
Do you mean what type of dog it would have been more?
Yeah.
What it would have been like? I would say they haven't really been as shaggier dogs, like hairier dogs. The hair was more sleek. So I mean, if I had to say, pick a dog, I would say like the on that one, It looked more like maybe like a Doberman, where they've got like shorter, like very, very like flat, fine hair, not fine hair, but sleek rather than like fluffy. So
Okay.
that's what I would say. You know, with a longer snout and you know, ears that stand up. Now, you know, answering that question there, the one that I remember from being in the car was more of a like a shaggier looking dog. So I would say more akin to like a, you know, like a wolf or a husky with you know, kind of bulkier fur,
Okay.
I guess.
Did you, so did you smell anything on that first encounter when you came across them?
Not that I can remember. And it could, again, it could just be that, you know, it could be there was nothing that I could smell, or it could just be that it was so long ago that I've just, you know, forgotten that. And then also, you know, it was a family, like a kind of a picnic type thing. So, I mean, there could have been, you know, other environmental smells, you know, barbecue cooking. I think that, I don't recall if we had a bonfire or anything like that, but yeah, nothing that I can remember in any of the encounters.
What time was it? Was it like in the evening or in the afternoon?
It was still daylight, but just barely. So being in the summertime, I mean, it could have been, you know, it could have been late. I mean, summertime, you know, the sun was not up, but it was still not completely dark out. So I would say probably, you know, somewhere between 7:30, somewhere around there. So like I said, not, you know, still some light in the sky, but not full daylight.
How far was you, like far away was you from that first encounter of a dog man?
Um, Probably no more than, you know, at the most, I didn't get right up on the fence, but I was probably like, I'd say 3 or 4, at the most 5 feet away from the
Oh,
fence
wow.
line.
Okay.
Yeah, I
And
mean, I got a
did,
pretty good look at it. I mean, it's something that, even though there are voids and memories about things, there are certain things that I'll never forget. Like I'll just never forget seeing that when I was a kid. I mean, it made my blood run cold. I think it was probably the first time I can ever remember being terrified.
oh,
But then
wow.
it didn't move to, you know, to be the aggressor or anything like that. So then I sort of it moved quickly from terror to being curious about what it was.
Did you see any wounds on it?
I mean, I'm sorry, any.
Any wounds, like any, like you said, it
No,
like,
that was what, yeah, it acted as if it were possibly injured, but I didn't see anything. Uh, didn't see anything, you know, that would lead me to believe that it was, you know, that someone had hurt it or it had become injured. I made that assumption just because of the way that it was moving itself.
okay. Was you able to hear anything like mind speak or telepathicness?
No, nothing like that.
All right. Let's see. How long did, well, actually, I'll ask about, so this dog man, was he look like he was actually really panicking, or was he kind of like just taking his time because he was hurt?
Didn't seem panicked, didn't seem like it rushed to get away or anything like that. Like I said, I stood and watched it, what, you know, in my 7-8-year-old mind felt like a long time, but could have just been, you know, a minute or so, could have just been a couple of seconds. You know how if you startle an animal, it's, you know, tries to scamper away, or even an injured animal will try to get itself to safety, but no sudden moves or any kind of panic that I observed, or that I can recall observing. It didn't seem like it. But then again, when we did go back into the backyard, it was gone. So
How long did that take, you think?
it couldn't have been more than just a few minutes. I went to the front to find my cousin, you know, kind of tell him what had happened. And I, you know, just say that there was something back there that I wanted him to come take a look at. And then, I mean, you know, of course, being a kid, he's maybe 2 years older than I am. So he was like, man, let's go take a look. So we, you know, went right back there. We were not allowed to go into the alley, and nobody did something that grandma didn't want you to do. So we didn't go back there. We don't want to get in trouble.
Where was this located, city or state wise?
I grew up in Indiana, so this was in. It's actually it's part of the city of Gary, but it's called rural Calumet Township. So there are. It's not like when you think of Gary, or if anyone thinks of Gary, it's not like a city. It's not like tall buildings or anything like that. It's just regular neighborhoods. Some of my neighbors had horses and sheep and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it was definitely the south side of the city, like the last rural area in that area. Just pretty small, tight knit community. Like my high school was just the kids that lived in that area. So we were that was probably like 100 of us, 100 kids in my graduating class.
Have you ever talked to anybody else that would live near you, or maybe friends that said they have seen the same creature?
No one that I'm aware. I did reach out to a few people, when I was, at the height of kind of looking a little deeper into it. I had a friend that was, kind of into supernatural and like, cryptozoology stuff. And he said, check with people that are from your old neighborhood. And I did ask a few people that I was still in contact with, and no one had anything. In fact, they were, kind of eyed me skeptically, like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I wish people
Fortunately.
wouldn't be like that.
Right.
Let's see. So when the second encounter happened,
Mhm.
what year was it?
Well, I'm thinking I was probably sophomore or junior, so probably like, or it was early 90s, definitely. So 93, 94.
94. Now, how long did those dogmen stay and stood in your room for? Like how long?
Um, as long as I watched them, they were there, and I laid there for a good few minutes, probably a solid minute, just trying to figure out what exactly I was looking at and thinking maybe I was having a dream or something. But then, a couple of minutes more after that, I just laid there, not really knowing how to react. So definitely a few minutes. But like I said, that I closed my eyes, thinking to myself, "This must be a dream," and I don't know how long I kept my eyes closed, or how long if I did go to sleep or
Mm.
pass out from panic. I don't know how long that lasted, but I mean, I would say from start to finish, I observed them for probably around 3 or 4 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And like
Did
I said,
you
they didn't move or anything like that. I mean, they, other than just, normal biological animal moving, like breathing and, just sort of, shifting slightly, there was no contact of any kind.
did you hear any kind of telepathic or mind speak then?
Unfortunately, no, nothing like that. I did. I do remember having dreams about that moment, but later. So that was, I think it was just my mind replaying it. So I mean, I don't know, and nothing. It was all just replayed the same. So it wasn't like anything, coming through telepathy or anything like that. But just kind of reliving that moment a few times. And I still occasionally do. I still will have a dream about. Generally, it's that specific instance. I don't dream often about the instance when I was a kid or when I was an adult, but I will have dreams about the time that they were in my room. So I mean, I guess that could be something, but that's just the event, that the one that sticks out that I recall dreaming about.
I'm starting to think that maybe they were trying to tell you something. There was an encounter where somebody seen a dog man, and it was going to attack
Hmm.
something out in the woods, and then it did body movements and it didn't talk, and the guy passed out.
Okay.
He ended up dreaming that night the exact same thing that was carrying on, but
Yeah,
it
I've read
yeah.
instances where that's happened.
So maybe they were saying something to you, but you wasn't. Maybe you were too tired or couldn't pick it up. Or
Right. That's definitely possible. I think at this point, I think anything is. I'm open to believing a lot of things.
what now? What which one of them out of the five were the scariest looking?
Like I said,
Or would you say
there
they would
was a
all?
larger one, sort of like at the foot of my bed. I personally wouldn't consider it scary. I mean, it was, what is the word? I want to look at for the perfect word. It was shocking, I think, but I never felt in all these instances. I even though I felt momentary terror when I was a kid, and shock when I woke up in my bedroom, and then just kind of almost disbelief when I saw the one when I was an adult. But I've never felt threatened or really scared. I think it was just the fear came from, I don't kind of feel like I'm contradicting myself, but the fear came from, I think, just being shocked by what was happening. It didn't come from, my animal brain saying, run because something's going to get you. It never felt like that. It was just like being startled. If a toddler walks into the room and startled me, I'm not afraid of the toddler. I'm afraid because something unexpected happened.
What do you think they wanted?
I really wish that I knew, and I've have looked online in a million different places, and I asked people, and some people have suggested hypnosis to see if there's something that I know but I'm blocking it or not remembering. I don't know. I don't know what they wanted. I felt, and I could be wrong. I felt like I've been observed. And I mean, everybody gets that, the tingling at the back of your neck where you feel like something's watching you or things like that. I mean, and of course, I just brush it off as that's just something that happens. But I always did, in my mind, think that they were watching me for some reason. I don't know if it was watching over me or just, really interested in this boring guy that's just doing his regular everyday life. But yeah, that was always my idea, was that they were just observing for some reason.
Now, did they all look the same when they were in your room?
It was dark, but they were all again like more like sleek fur, with the canine snout and the ears that kind of more it stood up. But they all had a similar appearance from what I could see. Like I'm saying, as far as like hair color, I mean, could they have varied slightly? Sure, but like I said, the only light coming in was from the hallway into my bedroom, because the door was probably 3/4 of the way closed. But they all appeared similar.
What color were their eyes, if their eyes glowed any?
You know what? A lot of people have asked me that. I don't ever remember any like illumination or anything like that. It just always seemed like just regular canine type eyes. So I think if I had to, I don't recall the most recent and final one, because we were a decent distance away from it. And when I was in the bedroom, I don't recall seeing any illumination or anything like that. And then the one when I saw when I was a kid, I mean, if I had to guess, I would say, based on the fur color, it would probably have had brownish eyes. But I didn't. I mean, I can't say that without a little bit of doubt, because I don't really have a memory of that.
Was you able to see what their legs looked like when they were in your room?
No, just the final one was the only one that I got to see head to toe, unobscured by anything.
Did you see any orbs or lights or shadow movement when those dogmen were in your room?
No, not that I can recall.
Now, for your personal opinion, what do you think dogmen are?
That is a tough one, because there's a lot of I've read a lot of things. I've seen a lot of things, in movies and things like that. I have read that some people think that they might be, visitors from another dimension or another planet. That kind of thing. So I don't know. I definitely don't think that they are men or humans that turn into dogs. I think that's I think that's their form all the time. That's how I feel. I feel like that's just what they are. I don't feel like it's, some curse where, like you got bit by a wolf and now every time the moon comes out, you turn into a dog man. I don't believe that. I did have a conversation with someone once who thoroughly believed that the Egyptian civilization had helped building their pyramids and their all their structures and their society, and that the reason that there were depictions of bird and dog-headed humanoids was because that's what they looked like, and so they were just honoring them. And I thought, I guess, that doesn't sound too far off. I mean, could that be? Of course. But then the whole connection that I have via the phone booth leads me to believe that they can come and go using other means, not necessarily from outer space or something like that. That there are other portals that they're able to come in and out of. Did I go somewhere, or did I have conversations with them while I was in that phone booth? I can't say for sure, but I'd like to believe that, because that's how, putting all the pieces together, that's what it seems the most likely to me. And I know that's not maybe not very likely, but I definitely told my family, my mother specifically, that I went somewhere and visited puppy people. And of course, being a little kid, that's what they probably were to me.
Did she give you any extra info on anything else you might have said, or?
No, I mean, she said she believes me, but she didn't say, I mean, again, this is, I'm 42. So this is when I was, at the most 5 or 6, so we're going back quite a while. So, she didn't really grill me when I came out of there. So, she just got the little bit of information that my, little kid mouth was telling her. So she probably just wrote it off as active, overactive imagination or just playing make believe. But yeah, I mean, I've asked her if she recalls anything else, if I said or did anything, and she doesn't have anything more for me.
All right. Oh, one more thing about that second encounter. Did
Sure.
you ever smell anything?
Not that I can recall. And again, a lot of people have asked me that too, since I was in such close proximity. But there's kind of a strange thing that I think I've told a few people, but I didn't really. I've been interviewed by podcasts and things like that before, and told my story. It's something that I've left out because it just seemed weird. And I think a lot of people that I have told were like, "What does that have anything to do with it?" I always have a memory of that event when I smell certain colognes, and I think it was the kind of cologne that I wore when I was a teenager, so probably something disgusting. But like if I catch a whiff of something that reminds me of that cologne, it reminds me of that event. So I'm thinking, I mean, I may have associated with that because I probably smelled heavily of that cologne when I was 15 or 16 years old. So it just reminds me of that specific event. But I don't ever recall smelling anything foul in any of the instances.
Okay.
Anything at all, really. I don't have I don't have a memory of any aromas, whether good or bad, other than that strange cologne reminding me of that night.
Now, this is going to be off of the topic from your encounter that we were just talking about, but have you ever had a near-death experience?
Not that I can recall. I think I would probably remember that. No, but nothing. I mean, other than I go camping quite a bit, and we do hiking, and we go to some rocky areas, and there have been a couple of times when I'm teetered on the edge of a rock, which probably certainly would have resulted in death had I fallen, but it never got to the point where it was that close, and that's more recent than anything else. But nothing that I can recall that springs to mind, like coming that close to having lost my life.
Now, why do you think you have had all these Dogman encounters?
Again, I don't know. I wish that I did, and I think that might be something that I'd like to dig into a little bit more. I mean, I've spoken to quite a few people that have suggested hypnotism, suggested other books to read and things like that. And I've got a whole laundry list of books that I want to take a peek at. Unfortunately, work keeps me pretty busy, so every time I'm like, I'm going to do that, and then this kind of slips my mind. But I don't know. I don't know. I don't know why I was singled out. The closest I've ever been able to come up with anything that even remotely makes sense is that I somehow made contact through that phone booth, and they were just interested in me after that. I mean, obviously other people have gone into that phone booth and never came out and said anything strange like that. So there was something that clicked, something that a perfect storm of something where I was a little kid and I was either just open to the experience enough where something, there was some connection, or it was just, maybe they were looking for a connection, and that worked out. But I don't know. I don't consider myself all that special that that's something would want to observe me for most of my life.
Now, what year was it for the third encounter?
I was in let's see, trying to think. I met my husband, my current husband, my only husband. He was my boyfriend at the time. Don't let him listen to that. I met him when I was, I think, 25. Could that be right? My gosh, that's forever ago. I was probably at the most 27, mid 20s. Yeah, definitely. Because that was probably, I got to get a calculator. Let's see what, my brain doesn't work so well anymore. Let's see. So I was graduated in 96, 2003, probably like 2005.
2005.
Yeah, because I think we met in 2003, and this was a couple of years, because I already had my own house by then. So, and he was staying with me, or at least he was staying with me that weekend, I remember.
Now, when you had this third encounter, did you got to see the whole body?
Yes, head to toe.
Did it make any
ahead,
gesture to you or anything?
Other than turning its head to look at us, to look dead at us, because it was, I don't know what it was doing on the ground, because there was nothing there after it was gone. But yeah, it stood up and sort of turned and looked at the car, and then that was, like I said, it just wasn't there anymore. Like think of smoke and the wind blows and then it's just gone. That's kind of how it felt. But yeah, it looked right at us. It knew we were watching it.
And it just ran off?
It didn't run. At least I don't recall it running. Again, there's not really a void, but it was there and then it just wasn't. That's the best way I can describe it. And that's how Gary describes it now too. It's just sort of like drifted, was just sort of not there anymore.
I know I asked you on the first encounter what city and state this was, but can you tell me what all three of them were?
Same, all the same.
The same?
Yep. Yeah, just different areas. The first was at my grandmother's house, which was still in the same area, but maybe 5 to 7 minute drive away. The second was at my parents' house, which was right around the corner from where the third encounter happened, or in the street, because that was near my house, and I lived for a time just like 6 or 7 houses away from my parents. So all right around in the same area. The phone booth, however, is in a different city, same state, but another different city, one city over.
Okay. I have another question for you. Do you think, or do you believe in reincarnation?
Reincarnation meaning that like an existing soul born into another, like a fresh body,
or past lives?
past life. I don't not believe in it, but I don't have any. I've never really experienced anything like that before. I have I do believe that people's spirits live on. I don't know if they necessarily live on in another body, but I feel like I've had contact with loved ones that have passed on. My grandmother always said, this is a different grandmother than the house I was at originally. My grandmother always said that when someone who's passed on has a message for you, they will send a signal. And she said that her mother always sent a cardinal. And so whenever I see a cardinal, I think of my grandmother. So, and I do see them occasionally when I'm having a bad day. So I'm like, there's got to be something to that. She's got to be sending me some sort of message. You know, if I'm having a rough time, or if it's stressful or something like that, I'll see a cardinal. Before we moved out of our house that we used to live in, we actually had a nest of cardinals in our yard, and it was pretty stressful because we didn't want to move out of that house. We liked it, but we had to move for work. So I thought, okay, grandma's sending me a nest of cardinals to calm me down. But yeah, I definitely believe that spirits live on in one way or another.
Have you seen any shadow beings or any kind of paranormal entities other than Dogman?
Yeah, actually, the house that we lived in at the time of the third encounter had something, a couple of somethings. There was something very angry and aggressive that lived or was focused on the one of the bedroom closets. I often would have nightmares sleeping in that bedroom. It was just very, like I said, very angry, very anguished. I'd wake up with like screaming in my head. I don't tell these stories very often, just because, you know, it's kind of bad to think about them. But yeah, there was something that happened when we lived in that house, and then in the basement, there was something that was a little less scary, a little more playful. I would often find my cat that I had at the time just in the corner, like, you know, chirping at nothing. So it was in one area in the basement down there, and it just the whole house felt like it had a bad vibe to it. So when we did sell it, we rented it first, and the couple that lived there after us, I feel bad even saying this, the couple that lived there after us got a divorce. And then the people that bought it from us also got a divorce. So I don't think whatever lived in that house likes people very much.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we got out just in time, I think. Well, we weren't married at the time. We didn't get married till after we moved out of there, but it was yeah. I lived there, about that house, and I lived there for about 5 years. And I think I just kind of got used to it, but other people noticed it too. I had a roommate for a time, and she would have bad dreams, and she felt like there was something negative there too. But yeah, it was a nasty one.
What would be
So I don't know if that's a poltergeist or a ghost, but I'm sorry, what was your question?
No. So what would be your scariest moment in that house?
Waking up the first night I woke up with it. It felt like I woke up because I thought I heard screaming. And I just kind of like sat bolt upright in bed, and then it took me a couple of seconds to realize that the screaming was inside my head. It wasn't an external noise that woke me up. It was whatever was in that closet in that area was just, I don't want to say attacking, because I didn't feel physically attacked, but I definitely not being very nice to me. And then one night we came home. Here's a good one too. One night we came home, and there were we'd had a party, just some friends over the night before, and so then we were up and about. I think it was a Sunday for sure. We're out doing some shopping or something, and we came home, and the whole house was clean from the party from the night before, but very all the doors were locked, but very visibly on one of the walls were handprints in soot. from the fire pit outside, which I mean, I just assume, but I mean, again, all the doors were locked. There was no sign of, breaking and entering or anything like that, but very plain on the living room wall, like someone had dipped their hands in soot and smeared their hands down the wall. So we didn't want to stick around too much longer after that. So we started making plans to go somewhere else.
Did your husband ever experience anything alone?
Yeah, he had
with
a
you?
lot of nightmares when he would stay with me. He didn't always live with me there because we were just dating at the times. But yeah, when he would come over, he didn't like sleeping in that room. He didn't like he would have nightmares. He would say that he would wake up to just feeling like pressure and like something was just being oppressive to him. Yeah, he wasn't a big fan of that either.
Wow. I have a very odd question for you.
Sure.
Has anything supernatural or paranormal happened to you in 2015?
In 2015, I mean, I don't nothing that springs to mind. I'm trying to think where I was even. We still lived in Indiana at that time. No, nothing that I can think of. Thankfully, the house that we moved into, even though it was very old in Indiana, the last house that we lived in before we moved to Illinois was very quiet. There was nothing in it except for us, which was nice. But yeah, I can't think of anything. I mean, I would probably have to go back and like look at if I looked at my Facebook timeline and just sort of skimmed through the year, I might be able to pinpoint something. If I do that and I think of something, I'll definitely contact you and let you know. But nothing springs to mind immediately for that year specifically.
Okay, well, the reason I asked is I find it's really crazy that your encounters happen 10 years apart each time. Your first encounter in 1985, your second encounter in 1994, and your third encounter in 2005.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. And again, those are just, they're as close as I can get, approximations. But I mean, from remembering back, those are is pretty accurate as far as I know, just based on what how old I knew that I was at the time. So yeah, I never thought of that.
In 2085, how old was you again? Was you 5 or 10?
In 1985?
Yeah.
I was 7 in 1985.
7,
yeah.
And then you had that occurrence when you were just a few years younger, where your mom said that you talked to the puppy people.
Yeah.
So I find it really something connecting there, strange connecting.
So that would have been a little earlier in the 80s. But yeah.
Yeah,
I never thought of that. I'll have to look back and see if anything. Definitely nothing regarding Dogmen, or I would have remembered that. But I'll have to look back to 2015 or roughly 10 years and see if I notated anything.
Okay. All right. Well, you've answered all my questions. I do hope that if you ever decide you want to find out more answers and you get the hypnotherapy, please let me know.
I definitely will.
I know that there is a connection of some sort, and that you've probably actually really experienced something and your mind might have blocked it out just because your brain does that when it's in protection mode.
Right.
But yeah, this was a really awesome story, and I appreciate having you on and telling me.
Thank you for having me. I always enjoy telling it to people and seeing their reactions. And some people are, like I said, some people are shocked, and some people a little bit of disbelief. But a few of the people that I've spoken to in the different groups and forums and things like that have had other stories that they've shared with me. So it's always very interesting.
Yeah, I'm glad I found you on Reddit. That's for sure.
And I had just started it. I was looking around for information one day, and someone suggested, "Oh, go to Reddit. There's a ton of Dogman forums and boards and stuff." And I said, "Really? I never even thought of that." And so I joined and found a group and then posted my story, and somebody called me out a little bit and said, "Oh, that sounds a lot like a story that I heard on Radio Rental." And I said, "Well, that's me. That was that was my story."
Yeah. For the folks that not heard it, if you guys want to check that out, Can you give them information on?
Sure.
the
Yeah.
audio?
It's a podcast. You can find it. I listen on Spotify. They haven't updated it in a little while, but basically it's called Radio Rental, and it is hosted by it's Rainn Wilson from The Office, but he goes by the name Terry Carnation. That's this character. He runs a creepy video store, and each of the little stories that he tells are like VHS cassettes. You can hear him putting them in and all that kind of stuff. So each episode has 3 or 4 short stories told by the person that experienced them. Ranging from near-death experiences, ghostly encounters, and any kind of thing like that, just strange stuff. And it's just a really cool show. I think there might be 14 episodes. I was on episode 13. I was the final story on episode 13. But there are a lot of really cool stories on there, like some that way scarier than mine. So definitely check it out if you're interested in that kind of stuff. So
Do you think that they're going to upload any more new stories on that?
I hope so. It's been hinted that they're going to do another season or more stories, but I haven't seen anything. I've seen some things by the creators that actually interviewed me. The creators have done other stuff, so I do hope that they do more stories. I know there are other podcasts that people have suggested that are similar, but I listen to a ton of more true crime than anything else. But I listen to a ton of of that kind of stuff, like scary stories and things like that. So yeah, definitely check it out. Your listeners should listen. It's there's some real good ones in there.
All right, David. Well, before I end the show, would you like to give any advice and closing comments for the audience for your experiences or any others?
Well, definitely based on if it's an experience like mine, definitely, maybe try to make contact and try to find out what they're looking for, or get as much information as you can, at least, maybe try to get a photograph or something like that. Of course, I never had the forethought to do anything like that, but yeah, find out as much as you can. I will say though, if it's like some of the other stories I've heard and they are more aggressive, then probably you should run.
All right. Well, I appreciate you for coming on, David, and I appreciate having the audience come in and listen in on our episode for today. And other than that, I hope you guys have a great evening. And that's been an episode of Real Supernatural Encounters. So I'll see you
Thanks for
guys
having me.
later. Thank you.